Okay, so welcome. I'd like to welcome everyone to Planning the CAC 2021-2022 year. And this is the chapter leader meetup. And my name is Anne Marie Queenie, and I am the CAC chair and on the STC 2020-2022 board. And on behalf of the CAC team, thank you for joining us today. This is one of our, I guess, new events, a meetup, and you're going to help us plan. So this is exciting. Before we begin, though, I'd like to introduce the 2021-2022 CAC team. Most of our team members are here today, and they'll be watching the chat and also participating because they wear the hats of chapter leaders too. And so we have, I'm looking at the screen, we have Alex Garcia, Danielle Villegas, Jamie Sagan, Kylie Jacobson, Lori Meyer, Joel Bessart, Marcia Shannon, Erica Frensley, John Clement, and Sharon Ford. And we also have Erin Galloway, who is our STC liaison, and she's also our technical manager today. So we also have Todd DeLuca, who is our CAC advisor. And I would be remiss if I did not mention that we have our CAC cat mascot. Lucy the CAC cat is here, and she's with Lori Meyer. So our Lucy has agreed to come back for another year, and so we are pleased to see Lucy. So next slide, please. So I just want to welcome all the chapter leaders, and the purpose for this meeting today is to help the CAC plan our year. You know, last year, as you remember, we offered a broad range of topics. So it was almost like we were setting the foundation, and we covered, for instance, we covered membership. Lori Meyer's here, and she did member recognition. We had Bobby do using LinkedIn, and then we had recognizing current members. We had operations topics with budgeting with James Bosquet, and community reports with Erin.
No, I can't hear anything.
And hello? Can everyone hear me? Okay, you can. All right. And if you could please put ourselves on mute, because we do have a large group here today. So I'll speak a little louder. I think someone said they couldn't hear. So we had managing social media, which is becoming more important. And we had Sri, who did vendor partnerships. So these recordings, by the way, are available on our CAC website. They're under leadership resources, and they're great for new leaders or for experienced leaders who want a refresher. So I wanted to give you that background because this year we're going to do something a little different. And we're going to do a deep dive into the topics that are most relevant to you as leaders. And so the only way we're going to know that is that we're going out and we're asking. We asked the SIG's communities of interest facilitators. We're going to ask the SIG community of practice managers. And now we're asking chapter leaders, not just presidents, but treasurers, secretaries, officers, longtime volunteers. What's important to you? Tell us what your challenges are. What's important to you as a leader, and how the CAC and STC can help you. I just want you to know that, like you, the CAC members are volunteers. So we probably won't be able to address all of your concerns. So it doesn't mean that we don't think they're important. It's just we probably will run out of time, just like you run out of time for your goals. So before we begin, I just want to go over some housekeeping rules. This session will be recorded, but it's only being recorded to assist the CAC in writing the minutes and ensuring that we capture all suggestions. Because once we get into our discussion, you know, we want to make sure we capture everyone's suggestions and ideas. So feel free to speak. We want honesty. We want feedback. This recording will not be distributed, but we will share the summation or the minutes with you. And since we have a large group today, we will mute everyone so we can reduce the background noise. And right now we have 25 people here, which is great. So we're going to use the raise hand feature, and it's in your webinar controls where you have the reactions. And so if you want to speak or have a suggestion or a comment or a question, please use that feature. If for some reason your version of Zoom doesn't have that, then just put HU in the chat panel and we'll look for it. And we'll have our chat, our CAC team members watching the chat, and also for the raised hand. Now, that may sound a little formal, but like I said, we have a lot of people here, and I want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to speak. If we find that we don't need it, we can loosen up a little, be more informal. We don't have, a lot of cross talking. Then we'll just have a conversation. And you're also very much invited to enter comments in the chat panel. And so what we're going to do right now is I am going to turn off my video because we're having some weather conditions here, and I just want to save some of the bandwidth. And if Aaron, we'd like to start with a poll. That would be a good way to start. So if you could please bring up the first poll. And the first question is, what are your 4 greatest challenges as a community leader? This is going to help us focus in on where we should, spend our resources, spend our time. So please, right now, respond. And if you could just pick your top 4 that you feel that is your greatest challenge as a community leader. And you could please do that now.
We were getting the comment that people can only pick one option.
Yeah, I just saw that. So
okay, Aaron's going to fix that.
Yes, we have some information coming in, but let me see if I can get into Zoom and make it switch the poll. Give me 1 second.
Well, multi-choice, yeah.
I'm going to end the poll and see if I can get into it.
Okay, yeah. So stand by and we'll fix that.
Give me 1 second here.
So while we're waiting, though, you could look at this and decide which selections you would pick.
It doesn't look like it's going to let me do multiples.
Because it did the last time we did this.
Well, yeah, no, I mean in the setup, like me doing an edit.
Okay.
So
Do
unfortunately,
you want to just relaunch then? Should we?
yeah, I can relaunch.
Okay.
I will relaunch this poll, and then if you give me a second, I can maybe redo it, and we can do it maybe a little bit at the end to get a more continued thing if we want to do that. All right.
All right. So now we're ready to go though?
Yes. So
okay, great. Yeah, so please decide, because it's never just one thing. There's several challenges as a community leader. So please pick the 4 biggest challenges that you find. And this will help us decide, what webinars we're going to feature or what information we can provide or what resources. So please
So,
pick.
It looks like we can still only pick one, so I would probably just say pick the most important one to you, or what's the biggest challenge among these? Because I'm sure with all of us, most of these are a challenge, but probably what is the biggest one of all?
Yep,
Might
and
be the way to
any
go.
of these will have a lot of conversation. So don't
Indeed.
be shy.
Okay, we still can't choose. So please choose the top one. More people. Okay. Jot this down. So I think we have about 95%. So I think we can close the poll. So it's probably no surprise, but it seems like what came in first was finding members to run for office and increasing member participation. Second. And third was attracting new members. And retaining came in fourth. Okay. Yes, we can, and finding effective communication tools is probably important, but it's not the top one, nor is student members. So I'm going to just put this on the side so you can see that. And it's very interesting because I did this poll, a similar poll, when we did our leadership program. And the results were basically the same. And we had a smaller group than this. We have about 27 people right now, and we had 11, but it really trended exactly the way that it happened here, that everyone really finds finding members to run for office to be the biggest challenge, followed by, again, it was attracting new members. So why don't we just start the conversation now that we know where we want to focus. Anyone like to make some comments about what are the challenges or the barriers for finding members to run for office? And again, please just use the hand up or if we have a hand up. Okay, Danielle.
Well, I don't know about anybody else, but I think for me, it's almost a tie between getting members to run for office. But part of it is that for me, it's almost like a double-edged sword, because most of the members of my chapter have been around for a while. So they've probably been president or they've been treasurer or something like that. So the pickings are slim. So that then means that I have to attract new members. But until I attract new members, I can't get new people to run. So it's kind of like a vicious cycle is the experience that I have at this point.
Okay. I saw Sharon Ford.
Yes, I have kind of the same situation. I think a lot of the people that have served STC in the Atlanta area have been doing it for a while. So it's kind of the top four would have been attracting students and new members. And we have the email list, and we have a lot of people that have contact with us, but it's just an email. So I think the challenge is to really kind of get people excited about STC and to get them to want to put that time in. I don't know if it's because they just don't know the STC anymore because the membership has dwindled so much. But one of the things I want to work on this year is trying to have more communication so we can learn about that. But it would be good to have some ideas of how to do that reach out and how to lure people into serving as leadership.
Okay. I think we also have Lori Myers' hand up.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think as far as getting people to run for office, there have been a number of things that have evolved over the last several years that I've noticed, because I've been in STC for many, many years. And I think especially in the last 10 years, you know, people are feeling more and more demands on their time, not only the amount of time for different activities, but the level of accomplishment that's expected of people. You know, people can't just, do a good job anymore. They have to do an outstanding job and be a superstar. They can't just meet deadlines anymore. They have to beat deadlines. They can't just have one degree. They have to have another degree or many, many certificates. So I think people are feeling a lot of demands on their career path. And in addition, there are more and more demands on people personally. There are family demands and other things that just conflict with trying to work full time and have a life outside of work and have a family and children and everything else. And I think all of these things have intensified over the years. And, we've had some candidates in Rochester, for example, where we almost had, some perfect people to run for an office, but then they said, I'd love to, I just can't do it. I'm starting a degree program, part-time or something. And they just felt that there were too many things splitting up their time that they couldn't do. And I think people are just, looking for anything that can help them to manage all of these expectations in their lives. It's just life itself is not as straightforward as it was many years ago. And we're seeing the effect of that now. And in addition, I think that some people might wonder, how can STC volunteering actually help me in my career? So it's not that it doesn't help as much as it used to, but there may be more scrutiny attached to that question than there was maybe 10 years ago. So those are just some thoughts.
Okay, that sounds good. And before I go to Jamie, because I know your hand was up next, I did see something in the chat, and Grant said, I'll also add that the folks who are the type to volunteer are likely also to be the ones volunteering with another organization. And I think, yeah, that probably is really the reality of it too. I probably people right now in our group here with the 27 participants, I bet if we asked you, I bet it said, raise your hand if you're in more than one leadership position. You probably are. And Heather says, I agree with Lori on people not having as much time. To add to that, it seems like there is less support from employers in years past in promoting professional groups and not just paying for membership. Example, how do we promote STC group membership for teams? That is a good question. And I don't want to diverge. Let's have Jamie give her information, and then maybe Aaron, you'd like to talk about the membership, the new membership for companies. So Jamie.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. The only thing I wanted to bring up was just thinking about my own circumstance. As much as I had been involved with SIGs and with the society level, I had never served in the chapter level. And so a lot of times people are afraid of the unknown. But I think part of the trick may be in appealing to people's Frodo Baggins, meaning I will go though I do not know the way. So in fact, when I was asked if I wanted to run for office, having just joined my chapter, I was like, okay, I'll do it. I mean, it sounded exciting and it's something to help me grow. I didn't think necessarily in terms of how it was going to help my career, but just, giving me experience, which I guess, blends itself into that. But I think it's just, we just have to try to tap into people's motivations and also helping them overcome the unknowns. Like, where do I even start? What do I do? And I think once we help people do that, maybe we might find candidates. I don't know.
Okay, that's a good point. Well, we'll go to Alec. Oh, no, I think Danielle had her hand up first.
Yeah, I
I'm
just
not-
wanted to kind of add, there's also another problem that I know we've had in our chapter where we have people who are saying, sure, I'll volunteer, but they don't follow through. That's almost as bad as not having volunteers at all. You know, that's a big problem that we've had where it ends up that there are like, let's say if there's a team of 10, maybe only 3 people are doing all the heavy lifting and some people are just along for the ride. And that doesn't seem very fair. And we've tried things to try to level the playing field as far as equal distribution, but some people just don't pull their weight, which is like, well, why are you volunteering if you're not going to really do anything? So that could be a problem as well. That kind of
Okay,
figures into this as well.
all right. Thank you. And then Alex?
Yeah, so along the same lines that both Danielle and Jamie were talking, I know in Florida we've run into goals that the chapter would have, taking a lot of volunteer capital. So you got to be careful with how much time you're putting on your volunteers if your projects are too big of a scope. And the last couple of years we've had to say, we just do not have the volunteer capital to do CAA, for example. So sometimes you have to make sacrifices as a chapter in order to be more successful. So.
All right, that brings up a good point. And it's just like in business, all companies, they prioritize, they have their 5-year plans or their 2-year plans. So I think basically what you were saying is something very important is that you need to prioritize.
Mhm.
If you have limited resources, as a company often has limited resources, then you need to see where's the best value for your members. That's a good point. And I do want to touch on some good conversations here in the chat. And Marianne brings up a good point about the internet. Yeah, it both helps and hurts. It makes communication easier, but it takes up more time. And I'm glad you said that, Marianne, because when we had our leadership program, again, we only had about 12, 15 people. So we had a very small representation. But that was definitely an issue when people had said that volunteering in general has become more complex and more time consuming. And part of it was to do with technology. And another part of it was just the regulations that are outside of our control. We are a 501c SSTC, but, there are banking regulations and different things. So I would just be curious if you just want to put in the chat, just a yay or a nay. Do you find that if you've been volunteering for a while, do you feel that it has become more complex and time consuming? Okay, some people say yes, some no. And while people answer, and I think part of that, life in general has become more complex too. Is that again? I think we go back to Alex's point about maybe prioritization. Depends on the task, Jamie says. Yeah, again, okay, that's a nice take on it. I found ways of automating tasks. So just like maybe if technology is making things more complex, maybe it can, again, ease the way or reduce redundant tasks. That's good. I just want to go through and just see if we've got everyone. Okay, and then Marianne, of course, says too that resources used to be available only through STC, but now they're available in many channels. I think Jessica brought up a good point too. that sometimes, you know, it's a fear of doing something new, that there might be a fear of, this is too big for me. I don't want to fail. And, you know, does anyone have that situation when you approach someone who you feel would be a good officer or a good volunteer or program manager, that there is that element of, you know, reluctance because of they haven't done it yet and there's fear, and how do you overcome that?
Yeah, I think even Jessica Nealon had mentioned in the chat earlier on that there's a great deal of fear of failure due to the lack of knowing what to do in some cases. And I think part of it is, you know, it depends on the chapter. In mine, as I mentioned in the chat, we have documentation all over the place on what to do and how to do it. And we also try to encourage transition training, like at least one meeting where you get together for an afternoon and say, okay, this is what you do in your role, and you know, here's your resources, you know, and you know, there's always an availability to answer questions along the way, but having procedures done where anybody can just pick up, read it, and get an idea of what it has to do. Even here at the CAC, we've had that. I mean, we've had our own documentation, so if we didn't know where to find something, we could look it up, because there's a whole Google Drive on how we do this, that, or the other thing. So that's a part of it, I think.
Yeah, and I'm looking because I'm trying to find that Richard had mentioned that he started volunteering many years ago, and I'm just trying to find it. Richard, would you like to speak to that, or you're just on chat? That's fine. Well, while we're waiting, I'm just looking before we go to.
What did you want me to speak to?
We're having a little difficulty hearing you.
Oh, sorry, because I don't have my mic anywhere near my face. That's yeah. I guess I did start volunteering with STC in the early 90s, and it was a lot less complicated. For example, when we did job leads, people called them in, and then we had a person who recorded a big long answering machine message, and then other people called in and listened to it once a week or something. And then we went to an email based job lead system, and that evolved over the years. But I don't know if that's a good example, because the email part was easier than the answering machine, I think, and cheaper too, of course. But nowadays we have to deal with Zoom meetings and learning all of that stuff, and we're trying to figure out how to deal with mixed meetings where we're going to be in person and remote simultaneously, and we have very little idea of how to make that work at the moment. But we have so many things. We have Google Drive that we put things on. We put things online. We used to just pass around paper with stuff on it, but now everybody can get at things, and that's great. But we need to learn the technology, and there's so many other technologies, maintaining our website, using WordPress, all that stuff. When I first did a website for the Berkeley chapter in 1996, we had a 3-page Word document that we were handing out to people, and I just put it into HTML and put it up there. And that was our website. But now it's you have to learn all these things. You have to learn WordPress. You have to learn all these plugins and other things, and how to keep it protected and safe, and then how to make it possible for different contributors to contribute from different ways. It's just really gotten quite complex.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good perspective, and you're right. Especially like with the security and all, that is a whole thing. Sometimes, you know, we think about all the other things, but I'm glad you brought up security. Because just because if we're a nonprofit, you know, there still are people there who like to hack in. We may not be the Pentagon or Fortune 500, but you know, some people, that's their hobby. So that's a good perspective. Thank you. And I think a good arc, you gave us a good arc of how things have changed. Thank you. I do want to say that there's a lot of good suggestions in the chat, and we will be saving the chat. And we'll compile all these really good ideas. And I see Erica has her hand up.
Richard's comments about volunteering. I've been volunteering in one way or another with STC Houston for well over 20 years, probably closer to 30. And when I was begged and pleaded to become president, we did not do this to you, Jamie, be grateful. Everything the previous administration had totally checked out. So we pretty much started from scratch. And it was both very difficult because I had no real training. I just knew, yeah, we need to put on meetings, so we need to find venues and speakers. But as far as specific STC ways of doing it, I hadn't a clue. We all learned on the job. So it became very much it was terrifying, but at the same time, it was very freeing because I was able to look at a lot of the things that we had done and the ways that we had done them when we had 600 members and a 25-person admin council, and say, no, we're not doing this because we simply don't have the capacity. It's a hard decision, but in some ways it makes it easier because you're paring down a lot of the things that to just what's important. It makes it a little bit more difficult because then the volunteers have to be more fully invested. You can't have any free riders with a small admin council. So that has been my experience with finding volunteers and volunteering myself. We've now rebuilt it to where no one is president until they have served 1 year as vice president at the minimum, because we're not throwing anyone into the shark-infested waters anymore. That's a little tacky.
Okay, so I think what you're bringing up is almost like succession planning.
It is succession planning, and it has to be current succession planning. If you've done a transition plan and a succession plan 15 years ago, chuck it out and start over. So much has changed that there will be very little that you can actually keep of that. Like I said, it makes it harder because then you have to be more fully invested. It makes it a little bit easier because then you have a good, honest analysis of what you had done in the past. And if A, it's valuable to do it, and B, if you can do it. I would love to throw a regional conference. It's not going to happen. So figure out a way to pare it down and have something happen. But that is something I think to think about in terms of the finding people. You have to look at your chapter and your history and what's happening now, and don't live in the past because it will bite you.
Okay. No, that's a good point. And you know, this is, I don't know what, this is, I guess, kind of unrelated, but related. I went on vacation and to Cape May, and there's a nonprofit historical organization there who really rebuilt that shore town. And it showed 50 years of growth, and it showed they did not stay the same. And I think that's what Erica and I think Richard's kind of saying, and several other you, that it went through this whole arc, and they called it like the teenage years and the young adult years and the mature years. But, you know, they started out when the Victorian craze was big and popular in America, and everybody wanted to stay in bed and breakfast, and that was the easy time. almost like when STC had hundreds of members per chapter. And then they found out, hey, wait a minute, times changed, tastes of tourists changed, and people really weren't as enthralled with Victorian era or bed and breakfast. So they had to change with it. And it made them stronger. You know, they're still there, they're it's 50 years, and they're still the cultural force in that area. So I think that's a really important point, that if you do change, it doesn't lessen you, it just makes it different. And in some ways, it could make you stronger. And I just want to touch base quickly that, and we'll have this link also. Alex has put a link in for the Fast Start Leaders Guide, which is very nice. And I do want to touch base on what Mike is saying. That currently, he's got just really 3 active people with several different processes and tools to learn. And they're having fewer people attending. And is that something also that some chapters are experiencing? And how are you addressing it? Danielle, do you want to touch that point? Is it something?
Yeah, actually I was. That's actually why I had my hand up, because
Okay,
the
great.
Philadelphia chapter has been struggling along for the past year or two. And about a year ago, when I was originally president, or my first round, I should say, there was a point, I think, just to Erica's point, in some cases you have to pare down. What we were finding is that we were having, again, trouble finding members to run for office. We were having the problems of not keeping a lot of new member or getting new members. A huge portion of our membership was, I think the term is, graying out. So there was a lot of people retiring and didn't want to stay on as retired members. And so we were kind of stuck, and we had to make some decisions. So the decisions we did, especially since we have been a platinum level chapter for many years, was what's more important, burning ourselves out by struggling to keep up with all these different things so we can keep up our platinum level, or do we want to keep the chapter? And as a council, we decided we want to stay as a chapter. That's what's more important. The awards are fantastic and they're great, and we can always strive for them, but we shouldn't be burning ourselves out in order to get those awards. So that was a big part of us starting to learn to pare down. And this year we just kind of were on cruise control, and we're kind of at that point where we're trying to pare down and rebuild and start from scratch again. Even though we have all that documentation, I think part of what we have to do is, like Erica said, kind of go back to the beginning, look at the quick start. There's something that's, for those of you who are not familiar with it, on the CAC site, we have a webinar that Bobby Werner did about a year ago that was based on her Pace Center Award, about using LinkedIn Sales Navigator to help you find new members. The quick take of it is that basically her Central New York chapter had dwindled down to 2 people, and she was able to build it up to like 35 within, in less than a year. And she's got a good leadership team in there now, and things are much better. So it's something that I'm even looking at to help rebuild and start from scratch, because this isn't your mother's STC or your dad's STC anymore. We really have to look at things differently. So, I can say just on experience, some of what Erica was saying is definitely what's going on.
All right.
So over to Sharon, because Sharon's probably going to say something similar.
Yeah, I was just
I
thinking the same thing.
Yeah, I was just going to say Sharon's turn to speak. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, yes, Danielle, I agree, because I was thinking, as you were saying, looking at the other presenter, the other leader that was able to grow their chapter, I was thinking the same thing. It's not the same STC that it used to be. Even I was volunteering back in 2008, and it was quite different. We had a room full of people. We had 30 people show up for different sessions, and even now it's like maybe 10. But one of the things I wanted to look at this year is to get away from age versus and stages, as opposed to like, what are people doing now? I think it goes back to an earlier comment that you got to keep up with the technologies that are being used, not just to run the actual board or the council, but I, like in the city of Atlanta, in the metro Atlanta area, I want to find out what do employers want to see right now, or how are technical communication jobs executing, you know, not just are people working mostly remote, but what kind of technologies are you using? We did a poll and people wanted to know a lot about UX and UI. So I think it's kind of, my hope is to reach out to people who are practitioners in the community and start getting more content on the website that speaks to working in the industry in specific areas of tech comm, in specific, maybe not a role as much as executing on certain deliverables. If your job is to write a document or keep track of things or writing things versus the user experience design part of it, but to focus more on that instead of if you're a student, as opposed to someone who's been doing it, because on either end of that, we see it as a spectrum, but really, you know, I am where I am as far as my age is concerned, and I'm still a student, I'm still learning. And I think it goes back to what someone said earlier, everyone's trying to get a certification now, not just a degree, but to figure out how to get a hold of the skill set that's necessary right now to stay employed, you know, whether it's part-time, full-time, or, you know, you have to learn a little bit more in different areas. So I'm hoping that if we can focus on getting more, having more programs that are more about not writing like the way I think a lot of traditionally experienced it, or even subject matter that is so deeply in technical writing that we kind of get away from the fact that tech comm has a bigger umbrella and so many other things under it, that maybe we can get more people into our meetings and into the organization to share those experiences and talk about, you know, where you work and what are you doing now, as opposed to people who know each other and talk about, you know, hey, is this guy still over there at this company, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, in that some people might just be technical communicators, but they don't think of themselves as that. So you've got to find them. Yeah. Now I'm looking at the time. This is a great conversation, but we do have one other topic. It will segue into, you know, specifically ways that the CAC could help. So if, Lori, you have your hand up. So if you could, you know, just briefly give us your take, what you wanted to say. Lori, are you unmuted? Okay, while we're waiting for Lori to unmute, is there anyone else? Because I see some people here, and it's great you're using the chat, because we'll put all this together.
Okay.
Oh, you're
I'm
here? Okay.
I'm unmuted. I'm sorry. My microphone went crazy. Anyway, Sharon, I really was interested in what you were saying about, you know, that we're practitioners and, you know, what we're working on, what we're doing. And, you know, I was thinking that one of the things that, you know, maybe it's a struggle for chapters is to help people to see how STC can help them in their jobs every day. And in fact, several years ago, and Richard, I don't know if you remember this, I wrote something for the East Bay newsletter, and the title was, "Did STC help you in your job today? Shout it out." Because that's what
I certainly do remember.
Oh, okay. Because that's the value that I look for in STC. Is this going to help me in my job? When I go in tomorrow and I'm struggling with something, what about STC can I bring in to help me with that? And I think that's, you know, we're surrounded so much these days by, you know, we're seeing articles, like I belong to a training organization, and they're advertising webinars about how to design PowerPoint presentations like a graphic design guru, how to design PowerPoint presentations that explode and everything else. And that's not what I need. I'm a practitioner. I have deadlines. I have very practical tasks to do. And I need my professional society to help me with that. And I think if we can avoid losing sight of that, that might help.
Okay.
That's well said. I agree.
Yes. That's very, very well said. And perhaps we can have Lori in the future either republish what she said. We do have a CAC monthly newsletter that we're trying to give new information and tips to, or we might just have another event. But I think, you know, I do want to segue in, but I think I just want to say it's very important. I think STC does offer people some skills and experiences and really lifelong networking and friendships that are very important. And I think we don't want to lose sight of that. As I said, I've always been passionate about communities. That's where I found my heart with STC. And I just want to say before we segue quickly to the last topic, is there anyone who hasn't had an opportunity to speak, would like to? Okay. If not, then I want to quickly go to the next poll. And because it's going to be, you know, we've had this great conversation. Now we're really getting a feel for and I think all of us know about these challenges, but we, as the CAC, how can we help? And there is something, and maybe we can bring up poll 2, Aaron, that we've been doing something with the SIG Communities of Interest, or SIG-COI facilitators. It's their brand new year. This is their inaugural year. And what the CAC and Aaron have been doing, we've been holding meetups. And they're for the facilitators, and because this is their first year and we're almost mentoring them, you might say. So we have how to do, STC will talk about, in the CAC, how we can help them, tips and techniques. And then we have opportunities for networking and info sharing. So the CAC is interested in knowing, is this a model that you would like to see us present? So if the CAC hosted informal meetups, and, you know, select all that you would like to attend. And good, I see that you're doing this. Would you like something on a specific topic? Let's say we take one of the topics that we've been talking about here, and someone gives a brief presentation or moderation of it, and people brainstorm and do info sharing. I see there's an interest in perhaps informal meetups where, if you're a new president, well, we get all the new presidents together and they could have discussions, and we have some experienced former presidents there. And I think Alex and Lori are 2 directors at large, for instance, and they're there for mentoring. I see also an open forum where you might just be able, maybe it's quarterly. So we are thinking about doing something like this, opening up or expanding what we're doing with the SIG-COIs into perhaps chapters and SIGs. And I'm looking, I'll just wait. We're almost, I think all the votes made. Okay, we have a few more coming in. And so we might try that. And, you know, have a specific topic and have a, I'm just jotting this down, where our interests lie. And because I think with the CAC, we're here to serve you. And just like you said, you know, I heard, hey, it's not 2001 anymore. It's not 1996 anymore. You know, the chapters need to do different things. Well, the CAC needs to do different things too. And I should mention, this would not replace our webinars because they're very valuable. And I did forget to mention with our webinars that we have a strategy planning panel that's been recorded with N.K. Grunberg, Alice Garcia, and Deborah Johnson. And they talk about how to do planning, how to do strategic planning. And that is available on the recording. Let's see, I think we've got all our votes. So 45%. popcorn open. And some people, okay. Well, that sounds good. I think you've given us a good direction. And we might just start having some informal meetups on some of these topics. So I'm looking, and it's 5 to right now. And so 5 minutes to the top of the hour. And I just would like to know if anyone, doesn't have to be any topic, would anyone like to just bring anything up that's on their mind? Questions for the CAC or questions for Aaron in STC? And in the meantime, Aaron, could you go to the next slide, please? So while we're thinking, because you have to have fun too, when somebody said something like that, is volunteering fun anymore? I hope our incentive program this year with superheroes, I hope that was fun, because we wanted to recognize you. You know, you had a very challenging year. You're all superheroes, and we tried to recognize that, try to do something a little different, and try to make it fun. So I see some people saying volunteering is fun if you have the right team around you. Yeah, that's very true. Sometimes I think technical communicators or writers, you know, we can be a bit of perfectionists, let's face it, because we have to be in our jobs. But, you know, sometimes we need to relax a little with the volunteering. So the CAC, again, we have our webinars that are recorded. We have our CAC newsletter that goes out every month, and we talk about information that will help you, events. And, you know, by the way, we also publicize if you're having a shared, I know the Alliance competition, if chapters are having something that they're sharing, and if you have a broad audience, we'll help you promote that. So if you're not on the CAC newsletter, you know, please contact someone on the CAC or our website, and we can add you. And with that, I'm going to say thank you for attending, and we're gonna do a lightning round now. So if anyone on the CAC team would like to say something real fast in exactly 2 minutes, we'll do the lightning round.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. This is really good.
Okay, thanks, Jamie.
Absolutely. I like to reiterate that you're not leading in a vacuum. We're always here for you. Don't be afraid to reach out.
Okay.
Communities are there for our members, and we are there for our communities.
That's nice. Exactly. All right.
Yes,
And-
I'd just add that we have lots of resources. Some of it's already on the CAC website, but to reiterate what the others have said, any of us that are on the CAC, you can reach out to us. If we don't know the answer, we usually know where to find an answer or get you going in the right direction. And we have a wealth of experience between all of us. So, you know, we're there for you, but you know, there's more resources there than you think there might be.
And that, thank you for reminding me, Danielle, because now I'm going to do my infomercial on the CAC outreach chart, which maybe we have to retool a little. But did you know that all these great people that are talking right now, Sharon and Danielle, Alex, Jamie, and I know Kylie's here, and Erica who just joined us, that you can you can email them and get information and guidance and tips on anything. Just go to the website, and we have a chart, and we have the topics that they're ready to talk to you about. So check that out. It's on the CAC website on the resources, and it's the very first entry. And yes, please join the Slack. And we are on the leadership channel, which we'll try to start engaging more on that also. And anyone else on the CAC team, or Aaron, you're officially on the CAC team too, would like to say something before we close?
Sure, if this type of feedback is so important to the CAC, but also to STC, because you guys are STCs. We want to make sure that we at the home office are helping to serve you and providing you with the benefits and resources that you need to help you excel at your chapters. So don't ever hesitate to send us notes or feedback or ask for help or let us know if you're in trouble, because like everybody has said, there are people here, there's tons of information, wealth of information of all the people here of just how we can help, and we can figure out things together, because a lot of the problems that we've had others have gone through. So there's a lot of knowledge and history within the chapter leaders where we can put our heads together and help find solutions for us all. So and help to improve for ideas for next year. No ideas in years in the future, no ideas too crazy. We're looking at our membership structure just to see if we're on par. We're doing an audit this year just to see what some of those changes will be. So if you even have feedback or thoughts or ideas, benefits or anything, shout them out, send them to me. You can, the easiest thing is membership@stc.org. Or you could always send something to communities@stc.org, and that'll get me and Anne-Marie at the same time as well. So either one of those. And Anne-Marie and I are in conversation once a week, so we are constantly communicating. So things that come to me will get to her and vice versa. So you can find us. Please do.
Great. All right, thank you, Anne. And so did I catch all the CAC members, or Todd, who would just like to say something briefly? If not, then it is the top of the hour, and I want to be respectful of your time. And thank you so much for joining us. I think this has been great. It's been very valuable. And I think hopefully the CAC will be having some things that you find valuable. And thank you very much again. Have a good evening or a good day, depending on your time zone. And
Thank you.
We hope to
Thank
hear from
you. Have a good
soon.
night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.
thanks.
Lucy sends purrs.
Aw.
The best.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Joining. Bye.
Bye-bye.